A question came up today in Bible study about persecution and about what that looks like and time frames and whatnot for things to get worse in this country. I'm not going to speculate on that. I can't. I mean, I could speculate, but not. I can't give any answer definitively. I don't think anyone really can. But I do think there are certain steps that when historians 100 or 200 years from now look at what happened in this country in the years leading up to 2020 and beyond, any historian of integrity, some semblance of integrity and honesty and true scholarship will be able to list certain discrete items, occurrences, major movements, major milestones that were reached, major thresholds that we've passed, that got us to where we are today and that ushered in a new dark ages. I'm not saying it's inevitable. I'm saying that for 40, 50 years, we've only seen one track. We've only seen this train go in one direction. So there's I don't know if you remember this, but I mentioned way back in Obergefell, 2015, June 2015, about Megan McArdle is a writer for Bloomberg Business, and she writes a couple of other things for other publications. And she's pretty centrist and not immoral, but not a Christian as I understand it, and not an advocate of the Christian faith, not an advocate of, the Christian religion. She might well be, but it doesn't come across in her writings. She is
What did she write for?
Bloomberg. So she's all about number crunching, models, looking at data analysis. So she's kind of been all over this pandemic, and whatnot. But I don't want to necessarily comment too much on her. But she wrote an article back in 2015 that many people thought was one of the most important articles. I think maybe Rod Dreher thought it was one of the most important articles that had been written that explains where we're at in this country. A little yawn. And I forget the title of it, but the gist of the article was that we in this country have crossed a threshold whereby the Christian faith is not seen as a religion of great import and historic consequence, but the Christian faith is now seen as a hobby akin to stamp collections and, model train enthusiasts and whatnot, right? And the reason why that's important to note, as she puts it in the article, is because when people who are not believers hear about the claims of the Christian faith and what Christians believe and what we represent and the sorts of consequences our beliefs have in a society, unbelievers are astounded at Christians, that they would impose their stamp collecting hobby on the rest of us, right? And that's that's a Kantian threshold that we've arrived in this country. Religion isn't anymore a public good. The Christian religion isn't. The Christian religion isn't neutral, where people might say, oh yeah, Christianity, huh, and shrug their shoulders. The Christian religion has now become a public enemy, such that when you hear something Christian, when you hear Christianity, when you hear Christians speak who is self-identified as a Christian, who is a professing Christian in public, you get a visceral reaction. You don't get, oh wow, this person's respectable. This person is moral. This person, I want them to be my neighbor. What a friend to have if I could be friends with this person. You don't get positivity. You don't get neutrality, right? A shrug of the shoulders, apathy, and indifference. What you get is negativity. So it's not just not respected, it's actually vilified and hated, because that's what you're supposed to do with what is evil, with what a society considers evil. And I think if we want to look at what makes for a totalitarian society, a truly tyrannical society, a society that has lost its moorings truly before God and is unmoored from justice, this is going to be one of those things where Christ is muted as, like, no one listens to Hitler anymore, right? Why would we want to listen to Hitler? And that's what Christ has become. In John 16:2, Jesus warns his church and says, the day will come, the hour will come when those who put you in prison, those who persecute you, think they're offering worship to God. And that's what we have in this country. We have the beginning component parts of this very dark age.
So why are other religions not being relegated to hobby? Or why would those in the mainstream explain themselves that Christianity is treated this way, but Islam and other religions are not?
Well, I think, one, some religions lend themselves to being viewed as a hobby. In the noumenal realm, put something in her mouth. Nasty girl. I think some religions lend themselves to that. I think some religions are actually totalitarian in the way Christianity is. Meaning they have a totalizing worldview. So I don't think of Islam as a religion of hobbyists. Islam is a religion of submission. That's what Islam means. And you are all in. I think in this country, it becomes a hobby. I don't think around the world it's a hobby for the true Muslim. America messes with everyone's religion. It's corrosive on the religious instinct of man.
But don't you think,
Go ahead.
Despite the melting pot that you see here, wouldn't you say, though, that there is something of a respect and a welcoming of devout Muslims?
Yes, and I think it has to do with the fact that because Christianity historically has been a totalizing religion, we're going to get to the fact that it is the one true living God that has spoken in His Word and has created Christianity. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think the fact that Christianity is a totalizing religion, nothing short of a totalizing religion can deal with Christianity. Islam is one of the few religions that can offer something of a point-by-point address and redress of the Christian faith, right?
So you think it's welcomed because...
Well, I think it has currency because of that, right? And I think secular humanism also, secularism, secular humanism is a little bit of an overlap, it's a redundancy. But I would say secularism, in its nihilistic, godless, scientism instantiation in this country, represents another kind of totalizing worldview. Here's the thing, though, and this is, I think, really the point, that Christianity is really the target, always and ever, of Satan. Satan is okay with targeting other religions if he can get to Christianity, if he can get to the Christian religion. He's okay with, joining forces if he can destroy you. He's okay with you swallowing a little bit of truth if he can hook you onto a lifetime of lies, as C.S. Lewis says in Screwtape Letters. He's okay with all of that. He's okay with people going to church and being modernist in their outlook. He's okay with you, being a Sunday school teacher, putting your kids in Christian school, if he can get you hooked to the message of the day and tuned into the wavelength so that your brain and your mind cannot think and cannot conceive outside of the steady diet he puts before you of Netflix, distraction, bullet pointing your faith so that it doesn't have universal claims, bullet or muting Jesus Christ so that he's not true prophet, priest, and king over all. So Satan is okay with any of these things. He's okay with a revival of religiosity, such as we saw after 9/11, right? Where you got the imams and you got everyone all lined up. We got everyone, right? The ACLU, right? Completely fine with that. If the end game remains the same, the complete destruction of the Christian faith, not by firebombing everything, right? Not by completely destroying everything so nothing's left, but oftentimes by the neutralizing of the Christian mind, by the slow erosion of Christian convictions and of the strength of our will to serve God, and to not back down from the truth claims of Jesus Christ. And so, sure, other religions may or may not be targeted at any point in time, but the Christian faith is always in sight. It's always targeted. It's always in the sights of the kingdom of darkness.
Right. I think that's the key, that Christianity is the target because it is true.
It's the same thing with the attack on Western Civ. Is Western Civ equal to the church? Well, no, it's not. I'm not going to go to bat for Western civilization as I would for the church. The church has my allegiance. The church has has my all in all because the church belongs to Jesus Christ. And I belong to Jesus Christ, right? But did the church help create Western civilization, right? Of course. Of course it did. Did the Christian faith give birth to true civilization as we see? See, people think that there are like these parallel civilizations out there that exist. You know, you got some kind of African civilization, you got some kind of Asian, Asiatic, Pacific Islander civilization. What you have is the Christian faith creating civilization, the concept of civilization, and that being implemented to varying degrees in other places. I'm not defending colonialism. I'm not defending exploitation, abuse, slavery, none of that. I am saying that there's something about Western civilization that endures. Western civilization predates the arrival of the incarnate Son of God, right? The Greco-Romans, Aristotle, Roman virtue, etc., etc. But anything good in those civilizations, in those cultures, right? One uses the word civilization lightly when describing those cultures, is only good because it approximates the Christian faith. The Christian faith owns everything that's good. And that's why we plunder the Egyptians. That's why we take from other civilizations, other cultures, and we bring them into the household wherein they truly belong, which is the Christian faith. So, in the attack on Western civilization, in the fire of Notre Dame Cathedral, we should realize and lament that something really important, something really good, something really true and beautiful is being attacked, right? That is in some way an approximation of the Christian faith. Is it cultural Christianity? Was it full of nominalism and nominal faith? Are they true Christians? I don't know. Maybe, sure. Why not? But it was part of what Christians produced. However corrupt, however distorted their faith may have been, they produced these artifacts of enduring value. And they saw from times past other cultures' artifacts, the Greeks and the Romans, and said, those are worth recovering and those are worth resourcing. But now within Christendom, now within a Christian worldview where they truly belong. So this is one of the reasons why Thomas takes Aristotle and works with Aristotle, right? Because he sees something very worthwhile in Aristotle.
Was Nero's Rome part of Western civilization?
Yes, because Western civilization has within its DNA some genetic programming, if I could put it that way, that predisposes it to persecuting the saints of God. Just like liberal democracy in our day is bringing the cannons up on the fort and taking aim at the church. It's all part of Western civilization, but it's the sort of thing that you have to confess and you have to move away from. I think the reduction and the limiting of Christianity to a hobby, back to the question, is one of the big contributing factors that puts us on the road to serfdom, to quote that book's title, on the road to a programmatic, public, unapologetic persecution of the church. When the Christian faith becomes private, when the Christian faith becomes nothing more than something you do on Sunday. It's a hobby. And in the church today, we have many people. So we're talking about attacks from without. How about the attack from within? A lot of Christian churches are very happy to live within that realm of Christianity is nothing more than a hobby. Christianity is nothing more than, something I do on the side. Christ is not the center of my life, and His Word does not have universal claims upon every aspect of my life. And I need to move away from my laziness and actually study the history of my faith to realize that up until 5 minutes ago, every Christian, medieval, Eastern, Occidental, Western, Roman, Catholic, Orthodox, understood the universal claims of Christ. But now we don't understand that, and so we see church as a hobby, we see the Christian faith as a hobby among many hobbies we have. And it's not going to work that way. Christ must be our all in all. And we must actually believe that, so that when anything trespasses and anything violates Christ's universal kingship, His rule, His reign, we say, you've overstepped your boundaries. And even if we're forced, because I think we're all being forced to live in a kind of slavery today. We're all socialists. Let's not kid ourselves, right? We're all on the internet, so how free can we be? But I think realizing that reality around us and within us, that we are given to slavery, that is our natural fallen predisposition. We are called by Christ to fight against that. And I think that's where the challenge is. The challenge is not that you're ever going to be scot-free. You're ever going to be without blemish and pure. The pure church only exists in the eschaton, upon the return of Jesus Christ. In this world, the church militant is very soiled. It's very tainted. But I think the strength is in the struggle. I think that what we must be given to is fighting against that which would enslave us, outside of us, but also within us, and saying, Lord, whatever it is, I'm a coward, I repent of my cowardice, help me to be strong and resolved in you. Help me to fear you a little bit more than I fear man. Help me to humble myself before you and before your word, so that I tremble before you and I tremble less before men. And that's the way of mortification. That's the way of vivification. That's the way of true conversion. And I think so many of us in the church don't see that. We're so lazy about this whole thing. We're absolutely lazy about this whole thing. And we're not engaged in the fight before us. And so we want complete triumph, we want complete purity. We embark on a quixotic search for that. We don't get it, and then we become exasperated. Right? Or we say, we're not even going to try. Just plug me into some Netflix, plug me into some Disney Plus. I want to buy Nike, Black Lives Matter, sign me up. I want to be respected in this world. I want to have respectability. I don't want to be hated, right? I want to be a good guy. I mean, who wants to be the bad guy? And because of our laziness, because we haven't truly been woke by the Spirit of God, and we don't realize what we have in Christ and what we have in the church of Jesus Christ and what we have in the history of our people, the Christian church, we fall into this funk that then takes over our lives. It characterizes our lives. And may God rebuke us for that. This is where we're at, though. I mean, honestly, as a Christian church, we as a church give our heritage away. And we say, sure, yeah, Christianity is a hobby. It's a hobby. And that's it. And so the world says, well, it looks like it's a hobby to you because your faith has no public expression, then it is a hobby. And so what ended up happening in 2015 with Obergefell is precisely the codification of Christianity as a hobby. And that's where we find ourselves.